So let's do a quick walk by of the garden and then we'll get in there and talk about some stuff. Everything's really doing pretty well. Starting to be more of a summertime weather pattern. Not extremely hot, but hot enough. Down on this end, the Dickinson pumpkin is starting to sprawl all over the place, and we've actually got a couple of pumpkins that have set on. As you can see, the zinnias have started to bloom. All the flowers are doing pretty well, really. And as you can see, we've got random sunflowers here and there. Some of them the birds planted and some of them I transplanted. Tomatoes are doing pretty well. This is the Tasmanian chocolate, and it's got a lot of tomatoes on it. Can't even see them all for the foliage, but it's got quite a few setting on towards the top. I'm really happy with it so far. If it tastes good at all, I'd probably be inclined to plant one out in the main garden next year. This is the dwarf jade beauty. It's setting on pretty well. Got a few up in the middle of the plant and blooms on the top. And the serendipity, it's setting on pretty well. Even the one in the straw bale. Let's go over and look at the pink passion. The pink passion is just set on extremely well and still setting on. We even have tomatoes on that one that I broke off and stuck back down in the bale. So I'm happy with it so far. I hope it tastes good. I'm looking forward to those taste tests. Then the 3945, you can probably see that little toad hopping there. We've got lots of toads. This 3945 has some decent sized tomatoes on it. Looking forward to the taste test on that one also. Hopefully it'll keep setting on. I've got this one and the Aunt Ruby's German Green and the Belgium Giant under the shade cloth here. Hopefully it'll do the trick. There's the Aunt Ruby's German Green. It's not setting on too well compared to the Belgium Giant. It's got tomatoes down at the bottom. Second truss has got tomatoes, and the third truss has got tomatoes. And then we've got some blooms in the fourth truss. Hopefully those will set on. The peppers down here on the north end of the garden are all getting blooms, so they'll be all setting on peppers soon. This one here is the Sugar Rush Peach. The strange thing about this pepper is it was one of the last ones to sprout, and it was very slow to grow, but now it's caught up with the rest of them and it's way ahead because it's got peppers, quite a few peppers already set on. And it's got tons of blooms. It's going to be absolutely loaded. Here's a look at the ginger. It's starting to grow pretty well. Then we have basil between the tomato cages. That's lemon basil, sweet basil, and another small lemon basil. carrots are starting to grow pretty well. This is the row of hybrid peppers, cross between an Oda and a hot pepper. They've all got peppers on them now. I think I'm gonna wait until I have a pepper from each one and do a taste test if I can stand the heat. I'm hoping for some milder heat than the F1 generation, but we'll see how that goes. Some of them are pretty dark, like that one. And then some of them have just kind of a blush of purple. Let me find one over here, like that one. That shishito's growing pretty well. It's got quite a few blooms on it. And that Big Daddy, we had 4 good-sized peppers on that, and I accidentally severely pruned it with my foot. It was more like this tall. Now it's down here. I need to top some of this basil. It's already starting to flower. That's sweet basil there. The eggplants are, I think, just a little bit behind where they should be, but they're going to have quite a few fruit on them if they ever start to get blooms. Got a lot of growing going on. Cucumbers are starting to really climb, and we've got quite a few small cucumbers just getting started. Got more basil over here between these tomato plants. And we've got some random sunflowers and peppers and sweet potatoes and just plants I didn't have room for anywhere else. They're just kind of back here by the fence doing their own thing. We finally got some bee activity in the bee hotel. That was good to see. We also had a little activity in one of the homemade bee hotels. One of our very small holes has been used and sealed off. My daughter-in-law got this sign for me, and we didn't notice when she gave it to me, or I didn't notice, and Tanya didn't notice, and of course she didn't notice when she bought it, but see if you can see where the mistake is. Even though it's got a misspelling, I'm just as proud of it as if it was spelled right. While I'm next to the bee hotel, I might as well show you these pole beans. They're starting to get quite a few blooms on them, and I think we'll get a decent number of beans out of these. I'm hoping anyway. And there's a closer look at the toilet with the petunias in it. Can't hardly see the tank anymore, and if that bottom part keeps growing, you won't be able to see it, the whole thing at all. I used to have our compost in a cage, but I started just using an open pile. It's just easier to get to. The frogs have discovered that flies like our compost pile, and they've set up shop right in the middle of it. Here's a look at the back of the Oda peppers. They're starting to set on pretty well, and we'll be picking some of those soon, along with the albino bullnose over here. Those two have always done well. There's three little toads. Just saw them. Toads have even been getting up on the straw bales. There's one in this little bitty hole back there. But those albino bullnose peppers have produced really well for us, as well as the Oda peppers. And this pepper here is a sweet pepper that's a Hungarian pepper, I believe. Some of the corn is already over 8 feet high. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this does. This is the hybrid corn that I produced last year. And I was looking yesterday. Oh, there it is. This one on the end here. It's got 4 ears. I thought that was kind of cool. Looking forward to seeing how that does. And the glass gem corn, I just have 5 plants at the end of that taller section there. I cut the tassels off of those so they wouldn't pollinate the hybrid corn. But the hybrid corn will pollinate those. Then we have some ornamental corn here that's going to be really late. I'm still waiting on the Mexican sunflowers to bloom. Haven't seen one yet. Speaking of sunflowers, while we're here, those two, that tallest one is probably getting, I don't know, close to 10 feet tall. And that one next to it's probably at least 9. They're just way up there. Pollinators love them. We're over here by the shed. This is kind of on the back side. Show you some of these blackberries down here that you never can see from my other angles. And we got, look at all the berries on there. It's just loaded with berries. The Musabasju banana is still growing pretty well, and this is the time of year when it really takes off compared to the earlier part of the summer and spring. This is the Musabasju here. Then right next to it is the Musa velutina, and it's starting to grow pretty well too. Of course, it won't get nearly as tall as the Musabasju. I probably have it a little bit too close, but that's the way it goes. I planted fennel for the first time last year, and it made it through the winter and really took off in the spring, and some of that is close to 7 feet tall now. Let's get over there and take a look at something. I was over here looking for caterpillars yesterday, and normally I see them on the foliage, but I didn't see very many. I got to looking at some of these flower heads, and you can see a couple of caterpillars here, but there's one up here. I don't know if you can see them all, but probably 6 or 8 little bitty caterpillars on this one flower head. Speaking of caterpillars, our monarchs hatched out and became butterflies. I raised the monarchs on butterfly weed, and this particular plant was almost bare stems not long ago because they chewed all the leaves off of it, but it's coming back pretty well, and looks like it's going to have quite a few flowers on it. There's one that's already in bloom. I'm really liking the butterfly weed. I'll do a quick walk by of the ornamental peppers. That one's Midnight Fire. Starting to get some red peppers on it. That one is Conga. Then we have New Mex Easter. It's getting lots of little peppers on it. Then we've got Medusa. It's starting to get quite a few peppers. Purple Flash. It's an interesting plant. Just the foliage just really catches your eye. The video doesn't do it justice, really. Poinsettia keeps growing tall and straight, which is kind of odd for an ornamental. I've been topping it, but it still keeps growing tall. The peppers are similar looking to the Medusa, but I prefer the growth habit of the Medusa so far. This is the Explosive Ember, and that Hot Pops Purple. Starting to get some little orange peppers on it. The sweet potatoes are starting to try to engulf the rest of the garden. Then we have Black Pearl. Those two look more like a black pearl. This looks more like some sort of hybrid, but we'll see how that goes. And a jalapeno. I think that, I'm not sure, I think this is a ground cherry that just came up by itself. Our common milkweed over here is finally starting to get flower buds on it, and they'll be blooming soon. It's way behind the wild ones. They've been blooming for a long time now. In case some of you were wondering about these vines along the edge of the garden, these are sweet potatoes. And I plant those as kind of like a weed barrier. They grow densely enough that it kind of helps keep the Bermuda grass out, and that's my biggest problem, it seems like, with the wood chips, is the Bermuda grass wanting to crawl in there and take over. But these sweet potatoes have worked very well for keeping that out, and then as a bonus you get a harvest at the end of the year. Speaking of sweet potatoes, in this grow bag, these are the red garnet. I'm going to have to trim some of that away from the pink tongue eggplants. They're getting blooms on them. There's a flower on the red garnet. They have more flowers on those than most of the other sweet potatoes I've tried. This mixed bag is also starting to encroach on the neighbors next to it. There's those 4 peppers in the grow bag. Everything's starting to look like a jungle, just the way we like it. Kind of look at things from this view. Here's just a quick look at the topsy-turvy tomato tree. These are Roma tomatoes. It's got quite a few tomatoes on it. Still setting a few. The Rose of Sharon starting to get quite a few flowers on it, just in time for the hummingbirds. It's getting to be that time of year when it's hard to show everything without making the video an hour long. I hope you've enjoyed this tour, and please let us know how your garden's doing. And if you're just now finding this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Otherwise, like, comment, and share. We'll see you next time.